waiting on Stevie. Um,
Hey,
Hello. Oh my gosh.
how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for being here. You're the first
Of
person
course.
who's taken us up on this. And I personally thought it would be a really cool thing to do. And so, especially after going through your profile, I'm just really excited to have you here.
Oh, I'm super excited to be here. I was so excited when I saw your post and saw you guys were from Connecticut.
Where in Connecticut are you?
I'm in Torrington at the moment, but I grew up and lived most of my life in Middletown. So
Gotcha.
right in the middle, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Hamden. I grew up
Okay, I
in
lived in
Hamden.
Hamden for a year.
Oh, cool. Middletown Invitational, many a track meet at the Middletown Invitational.
In my head, I'm like Sleepy Giant and a really good ice cream place. It's like
Mhm.
what I associate Hamden with. And obviously, it's not there anymore, but the space. I
Oh,
mean,
the
it's kind
spit.
of there, but it's not really there. Like, it's not the same. But
Mhm. Did you grow up going to the space?
I went a few times late high school, early college, and I actually did my first open mic at the space in the underground part. Yeah. So I have
Oh,
like a
that's so
cassette.
cool.
I think it's like a cassette or like a CD version of the recording because it was like so long ago at this point. But that was super exciting. I feel like we've lost a lot of that music community that used to be here, like earlier 2000s, which is sad. But maybe after COVID, people will be inspired to, I
Mhm.
don't know, reach out to each other in real life to start playing again and stuff
I
like
know.
that.
Even this past weekend, I was at a little like impromptu. They called it a porch fest in Boston, where I'm staying now, and
Okay.
like a band that my friends knew, and they played on their porch in like the parking lot of their apartment building,
That's so
and
fun.
like and some person who apparently had only been playing guitar for like a couple months got up and played a couple songs with them.
Oh,
Just
see,
like
that's awesome.
it was
Oh,
just
that's
so
great.
great.
That supportive community is super awesome.
Mhm. So how old were you when you played your first open mic?
Uh, Played, I was like 20. I'm so bad with like time. Maybe 23. I had done poetry open mics prior to that, but that was the first time I played at an open mic, and I had performed in like high school events and things like that. Actually, my first like solo performance was at the school. It wasn't necessarily an open mic, and I did a cover of a Blink 182 song. And I was super excited that my chorus teacher let me do that because everybody else chose such like proper was considered like good music and things like that, like arias and
Hmm,
stuff like that. And I'm like, can I take this punk band and make an acoustic version of this song and play it?
that's so cool.
So
What song was it?
it was Untitled off of their Dude Ranch album.
Dude Ranch.
So
Okay.
yeah, it was basically kind of about growing up and losing friends. So it
Mm,
wasn't a very happy song. It wasn't one of their more fun songs, but I connected more to the lyrics and I loved it. So I had a friend who played guitar because at that time I didn't, who helped me just kind of understand how to do that. And he accompanied
mm.
me so I could just sing. But yeah, so that was my first kind of like performance on my own doing a cover, even though it wasn't an official open mic. And I was probably 16 or 15.
So you started writing poetry before you started writing music,
Yeah,
right?
I started writing poetry in seventh grade. I had an amazing English teacher, and I had just lost my best friend the year
Mm.
before to a fire. So I had a lot of emotions and nowhere to put them. She kind of just really encouraged me, and I ended up actually going and getting my master's in poetry.
Whoa.
Um, but then that turned into songwriting.
Hmm.
So, which, I feel like my lyrics are probably the strongest part of my music just because I have so much training in it and my vocals are strong because I did a lot of vocal training as a kid, but my instruments are still trying to catch up. Still learning a lot, guitar wise and things like that. but that's what makes it fun. There's always more to
Mhm.
learn in music. There's always more to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I started writing poetry when I was probably like seventh grade as well. Had a lot of feelings, had a lot of thoughts. Didn't didn't think anyone else would care to see them, nor should they have. Like
Oh
especially.
yeah, no, if I look back at that poetry now, like I'm just like, oh gosh,
Mhm.
so bad.
Yeah,
But it served its purpose at the time, so
and there's just something to be said about letting your art evolve with you and grow with you. And like I think something that held me back for a long time was I like not thinking that I fit a certain narrative of what whatever I wanted to do needed. I think, and
right.
I think because the music industry is such a industry and it's something that we get so attached to is like the
Mm-hmm.
narratives of these artists that
Yeah,
I think it can be hard sometimes to just let yourself enjoy being bad at guitar and enjoy like trying to learn a song that would be easy for someone else and letting like as it is with you letting your art kind of evolve and grow
yeah,
with you.
and that's like part of why, like for some story posts, like I'll put like some clips of like me struggling to like do something because I feel like on social media, especially now that it's just so prevalent everywhere, we get a lot of best versions, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it makes people think that people can just pick something up and do it, and if they can't just play perfectly or sing perfectly or whatever it is, skate perfectly, whatever, um, that somehow they're just not good enough to get there. But it takes a lot of time, and it can be fun. Like,
Mm-hmm.
failure doesn't have to be this devastating thing. I
Ooh,
like,
that's a good one.
like the first time I consider the first time I let myself fall off my skateboard to be the moment where I could actually start to grow in skateboarding. Because like all of a sudden it was like, oh well, I fell down and I have a huge gash on my chin, and like I'm bruised, but like I'm back up and I'm okay. So like if that's the biggest thing, like if you're scared to fall, you're not gonna let yourself jump. Essentially, you have that mental block in your way, and you don't get to do all the fun, crazy things otherwise you'd get to if you just kind of like, I'm not gonna die from this. I mean, there are things that you can die from. Like, I'm not saying like go out and just throw caution to the wind, but reasonable things. That fear of failure not getting in your way. So,
Yeah, fear of failure and anything that is keeping you from doing what you would do if no one knew. Like
right,
if there was no like if what you did didn't impact the way that people thought about you or like applied their own little judgments onto you because you know how
right,
it's never about you, it's always
yeah,
just about how that person sees the world. And even if it's just a matter of taste and someone doesn't like what you make, then that's just
right,
their taste, like that's not a reflection
right. Then you're just
on
like,
you.
well, that's not my demographic. That's
Mm-hmm.
fine. There's a lot of music out there that I can be like, I appreciate the artistry behind this, but it's not going to go on my playlist. Like, and that's fine. That's why there's so many options. There's so much like genre wise and lyric wise and sound wise. It'd be boring if everybody liked the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Are there any artists whose mental health advocacy or any of their stories has meant anything to you? Like I remember I stalked your like archived little story guys and I saw
mhm,
you went to the Billie Eilish show.
I
So like
did.
piggybacking off of that, how was that concert? I've heard very good
It
things.
it was amazing. It was a kind of a last minute decision, and I went by myself. It was a The demographic there
Yeah.
was a lot different than what I expected in the crowd, which was
Mm-hmm.
fun. It was fun. It was just so diverse. But she's a great example of someone who's just a good model of just being yourself and not trying to fit in to kind of what maybe mainstream industry does/did push for with taking, the Mickey Mouse clubbers and
Mm.
saying these are your songs and you will now be blonde and this is like what you need to wear. Um, and she speaks very openly about the struggles she had with losing her friend and her own anxiety and things like that. And I think that's awesome. I think it's a good move forward in terms of a lot of mental health things. People like her, people like, I know there's a lot of like pop stars who have spoken out about things like Selena Gomez, and
Mm-hmm.
Halsey has talked about her own struggles with bipolar. But if you looked back to like, the late 90s, early 90s, the stories about mental health were all tragic.
Mm.
But they were also romanticized at the same time. And like, so like, if we think about probably the most prominent one being like Kurt Cobain, like there were a lot of kind of outside kids, teenagers, even young adults, I'm sure, who related to that and found something there. And then he ends up killing himself. And it's kind of almost like it was put on a pedestal a little bit. And it had this romantic version that, like, oh, well, to be this like deep artist, you need to continue to struggle your whole life and end tragically. But, that's not the truth. You can get through your situations and still draw from that. You can still write about the pain, draw about the pain, whatever it is you create, without having to exist in a constant state of that pain. And that's something that took me a long time to understand. Like, there was a mental block with some of my own issues where it's like, well, if I get better, I'm not going to have anything to say anymore,
Mm.
or I'm not going to be able to like relate to people or feel things anymore. And I think it was part of that like romantic vision of like the tortured artist. And so having, prominent people from different genres speaking out, whether it's in the hip hop world, the pop world, the rock world, and saying, I struggle with this, but I take my medication, or I go to therapy, or I'm dealing with this, or I'm taking time off to go and deal with these issues that have come up in the last year. And being honest about that shows that it's okay to go get that help, and they come back and it's not like they suck. Like, they're still a
Mm-hmm.
great artist. They're still that same person. They're just in a better headspace to be able to make that art now. So
Yeah,
I think that's like the huge thing that's really come out of people talking about their struggles.
absolutely. And even, you know, there's empathy, man. Like you can pull those things and you can pull the lyrics you need out of anything, like out of
Right.
someone else's story or a book or TV. Or I think having those walls kind of broken, I think what comes to mind for some reason initially is the whole Taylor Swift folklore trilogy of
Mm.
songs that are about like a fictional like love triangle.
Right.
That's just completely made up.
Right.
But when if you're someone who likes to write and you're someone who likes to create, you can like
Right.
absolutely use the ugly things and use the dark things if that makes something that you're proud of and that feels good to you.
Yeah, I think there's a weird thing, and it happens for writers as well as like musicians, and I'm sure every other genre of art as well, is that the audience, whatever format that is, associates the art with the facts and not necessarily just the truth. And I
Mm.
think I learned a big thing from that from actually Eminem, because he made up all of these characters and talked about all of these things. And some of the things are true, but some of them are just, they're just fictional situations. I was like, oh, so you don't have to make everything like biographically accurate to convey the truth of emotions behind it, which is the important thing. Because if it's too specific, then you're really narrowing in at who can connect to it. So getting to the feelings of things instead of those facts, that you need to that people I think feel like they need to be accurate, otherwise they're like lying. But it's art. It's not meant to be your
Mm-hmm.
biography necessarily.
Yeah.
So
And touching back to the glorification
yeah.
of the pain and that fine line between being able to see yourself represented and being able to see yourself in someone that maybe you even idolize and making it feel like you're okay and that if they're doing it I can do it, all that stuff. But that line between that and glorification of something that is objectively a harm,
Right.
which again, like looking back on your profile, I saw you had used hashtags about like deleting, like fighting the pro Anna community and stuff like that. Um, would you
Yeah.
mind just like touching on like what that is, like what that space is on the internet for people who don't know? Because I think for people who have no experience in that world first or second hand, it's just like bonkers.
Yeah. So I looked for like a lot of coping mechanisms when I was a teenager, and the two biggest ones were that I ended up developing an eating disorder, which took decades to get rid of. And by get rid of, I mean kind of in remission, and self-injury. And I couldn't talk about these things with anybody. And so I would go online and I would become a part of this community, which at the beginning of going into it looks like support. It looks like other people who understand um, and get it and you can talk to, but it just becomes this thing where people feed each other unhealthy ideas. So like with the pro Anna community or the pro Mia community, it's essentially, it is what it sounds like, pro anorexic or pro bulimic, and people will like challenge each other or post like what they call thinspo, so that you have like a motivational picture, and it just, you get lost in this universe. And I know that a lot of places have banned like the, you know, hashtag like thinspo or whatever, but the problem is that unhealthy people who want to stay unhealthy will just find a new hashtag. Like,
You just change one letter. Like,
right, exactly. And you can find it. You can find it just by scrolling through feeds, essentially, if you're looking hard enough. But I report a lot of things in like the ads. Like, I yell at Instagram all the time. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that when I'm on Instagram, but I'm like, I don't want dieting ads in my feed. Like, this is not healthy for me. I wish you would stop doing this. But it's a really unhealthy place, and like it, for like young girls or guys, it can be a place that triggers something that's not yet there. Like, they just want to lose some weight, and maybe they genuinely like could lose some weight, but this is not the way to do it, and it just kind of glorifies it. And then you have a bunch of people who, you know, they're emancipated, or they feel like they can't do it, and now they're a failure, and now they're more depressed than when they went there in the first place. Or people like showing, you know, I was guilty of this. I was in this community like as a teen, like as a college student, because I didn't understand it. And I did make a couple great friends there who we left when we kind of were like, this is a really bad place to be. But once you're in there, it's like you don't see it. I don't know, like if, for people who play video games, like, you know, you can lose your whole week in a video game and not understand time and space anymore, eating, and you can just lose yourself in like communities that do that. So while there are communities that are supportive out there for mental health reasons, there's a lot of places that, you know, they'll tell you how to kill yourself. Like, if you go and they're suicidal, they'll tell you like, oh, well, you should try this. And like, I don't exactly understand that, like being a person who could tell somebody else how to do it. I understand wanting to kill yourself, but the people who just kind of prey on that, it's just a messed up up situation. And I don't really think a lot of attention is drawn to it at all, by the people who need to be paying attention to it.
Even when I was more of a frequent TikTok user, like seeing a lot of people saying like, hey guys, we are repeating Tumblr 2014. We are doing exactly that right now on this app for this new batch of kids.
Yeah, Tumblr is a bad. Tumblr was a great idea as a platform when it came out, but it has a lot of unhealthy subcultures in it. I would avoid Tumblr at this point and forever. I know that the company itself has to put things in to try and deal with it, but honestly, you know, they can't. You can't stop it. It's the internet. Like, it's can't really edit everything out. But yeah, there's a lot of unhealthy stuff on there, which is probably how I found initially a lot of the unhealthy things that I did look at when I was younger. So I won't. I won't go on that. I have my my username taken because I didn't want somebody else to be able to take my name. and make an account and do something bad with
Smart.
it. So it exists, but it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I think it's a very dangerous place to be. But with that mindset, I don't know, I'm sure you can find it anywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
like that community. So building healthy communities, building music communities or art communities or
Mm-hmm.
skate communities or, you know, whatever, like those are the communities. Be part of those communities and avoid the other things.
Yeah,
Eventually, if nobody goes, they'll die out. So
definitely. And that's part of our foundation's whole thing, is trying to induct these kids and teens who are experiencing, we keep it pretty broad, like experiencing a life struggle, mental health struggle, whether it's, like parents are getting divorced, if they're experiencing
mm-hmm.
grief, even just tough financial times for their family is very much a stressor for a child.
Yeah,
Um, and to give them music as a tool of self-worth and being able to express themselves, and just like you said earlier, in learn how to fail and learn how to overcome that failure and be able to kind of sit in it in order
right.
to get to where you want to be, and be able to look back and say like, oh, remember when I couldn't even play like Cleopatra by the Lumineers or whatever. And also induct them into a community that is knowledgeable about mental health, and so many of us have been through things that these kids can relate to,
Right,
and have it be that positive side.
exactly. And learning how to pick other people up when you're part of
Mm-hmm.
that community instead of being that person who decides to just be a jerk on social media or whatever, leave those comments, to learn to just kind of whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
don't even know me. Like, and like to build people up, we need a lot more of that. Um, and, you know, music is it's amazing for your brain, it's amazing for your soul, it's amazing for your like mental health, it's amazing for everything. It just kind of, I mean, you know, everybody's music is going to be different or what you do with it, but it can just help. And like even like coping with like bigger, like your coping mechanisms, like the only thing, I was in programs for probably like 7+ years for self-injury, and they would give me all these tools, and I and if they're working for you, great, but they weren't
Mm-hmm.
working for me. And I was just like, I don't get how this is supposed to help. The only thing that helped was picking up a guitar and practicing 9 hours a day. And any time that I needed to like felt that urge, it was just like, okay, we'll pick up the guitar and this is what you're doing until that moment passes. Like until you don't feel that in your body anymore, that need, you're just gonna sit here and you're gonna play the guitar. I don't care if it's the same two chords over and over again or the same chord over and over again. Like this is what your hands are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I'd ever been able to go longer than like a couple months without reverting back to that. And at this point, you know, I don't even know. I stopped counting, and you're okay. Like, you know, it's kind of in your past when you stop counting it. It's just been so long, and for that, like, the guitar has given me my life back in that sense, in so many ways. Even if I'm never going to be a lead guitarist, which is not my aspiration anyway, um, but it's a huge gift to have been given, and the people who taught me, like I owe them a huge gratitude as well, and made that possible for me. So, um, yeah.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that's incredible on all fronts. Like, so cool. Like, kudos to you. um Such a cool thing to hear. And like, even, the guitar helped you, and the guitar was, you know it turned out, it sounds like, to be the right mechanism for you and
Right.
to be a really great tool for you. But also, that was you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You also sat there for 9 hours.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And you know, I think, because at that time, like, if anybody had said, well, you don't really want to die, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Like, you don't really want, like, it's like, no, but I do, but I didn't. Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the cognitive, like, awareness to know that I didn't. I just wanted the hurt to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's what I associated it with. So, like, making that decision to try something and to just go for it and to not care what other people thought about it, you know, that took a leap, and it's a hard leap to take, but luckily I did have people, friends and family in my life who are in my life who are super supportive and super empathetic and compassionate. Like, I had places to go to talk if I needed to. I just wasn't good at doing it. And I recognize that there are a lot of people who aren't as lucky as that. But, you know, I also used the crisis text lines and stuff like that when I, like, really was struggling with things. And, you know, I keep that number with me to give to people, and just, like, reaching out, because there's always going to be people. It's just you need to ask. And I think what you guys are doing, like, making kind of a place where people can turn to and help them build that, peer wise, and just having, like, you know, mentors who've been through it, is just such a strong thing, because some people don't feel like they can go to their parents or to their friends or to a teacher. Like, my music teacher was amazing. Like, he still follows me on social media. Like, he was, you know, he sent me a message when I released my EP. Like, he's super sweet. But the more avenues we can have for people who don't have those natural relationships that they can turn to in their life, like, the better, because going through it alone or trying to take that first step alone feels impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also a testament to, if you're able to be that person for somebody, you know, not everyone has the capacity for it all the time. We also all have our own stuff going
Right.
on. But if you're able to, even Jamie, the president of our foundation, is looking into getting, you know, suicide intervention, like, certifications and classes for the AJJ board.
Awesome.
Which, when stuff like that starts to be accessible, and maybe we have that for, you know, all teachers, and maybe not even just guidance counselors, and
right.
You know, if you're able to be that person and you're able to speak up about what you've been through and make someone feel comfortable, it can, sometimes that's just the little push that someone needs to be able to carry the rest on their own, or without quite as much help, you know?
Right. Yeah. Or to, you know, find the people, like, be able to get the courage to go to the people who really, like, you know, it's their job to, like, help you, like, through this until you can get to a place. And I was nervous again, like, with medication. Like, I know there's a lot of people who don't want to take medication. And part of the issue is I was misdiagnosed for most of my life. Like, my depression and anxiety actually was it was an offshoot from ADHD. But I'm a girl. So if you're a girl out there and you've tried the meds and you're doing these things, and the tendency for suicide in girls with ADHD or cutting or eating disorders is, like, 33% higher, at least on the lower end.
Wow.
You know, that awareness, like, I'm super grateful that I had a doctor who was willing to work with me, and, like, a friend who was like, you need to look at this article, and just kind of pushed me. But being on the right medication, like, I was scared. I was scared just, like, being happy was going to ruin my music. I was scared being like, I'm like, oh, well, then my creativity is going to be gone, because I won't have, if you're on the proper medication, is not going to hinder who you are. It's just going to make it so that you can be who you are in a healthier way. Like, I'm not a different person on the medication. I'm just a person who, you know, is less anxious, or a person who can sit down and actually write a song instead of just looking at the paper and being like, I can't do this, I suck. I don't know what the stigma, like, how it starts, but you would never say that to, like, your parent, if they needed to be on heart medication. Well, what if it changes who I am? Like, like, no, live, please.
Yeah.
Like, just take the medication and live and be happy.
I
want you there. And it's just the same thing. It's just sometimes, you know, instead of it's your insulin not getting enough insulin, you're not getting enough serotonin or dopamine, and doesn't make you, you know, defective. It just means you need a little help with that, and that's not a big deal. It makes your life better and longer. So I don't know how to like get through that with people, but it doesn't change who you are, and I feel like that's a huge misconception, and it's even a misconception in certain songs,
Mm.
where they like, you know, I love like certain artists, but sometimes when they're talking about it, they're like, I won't take my meds, and I'm like, well, that's not helpful. Because music got me through a lot of things, like listening to like Stained or like things like that, like got me through my sad times. Going to Warp tours, like, and stuff like that, which, by the way, Warp Tour, if you get to hear this for any reason, like, I think post-COVID, you need to have a revival just at least for a year so people can
Yes.
get their bearings
Yes.
back after these past 2 years. But I don't know, being an artist, I think there's a responsibility to be vulnerable and truthful in terms of like the experience of being human, but also a responsibility to not promote the unhealthy things as well. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's so true. And it is a real responsibility that people with a platform, or even, you know, artists without a substantial platform, carry. And it's also hard because, you know, your song can mean something to you. But once you put it out there, it's no longer only yours. It's open to the interpretation of whoever happens to find it.
Yeah. And that's scary as an artist. And it's interesting as a listener, as an audience member, because there's lots of times where I don't want to know. Like, people like, did you know that this song is actually, I'm like, no. This song means something to me in this way. I don't need to know the real story for certain songs, because now I have an attachment to it. But then as an artist, you're like, oh no, that's not what I meant at all. Being able to kind of let go of that is a skill on its own. Like, once it's out there, like, but that's the goal, is to, like, you know, that's why I started songwriting. It's like, without certain songs in my life, I don't even know how I would have survived some of those moments. To just be like, oh, this person gets it. Like, this person knows what I feel. And there's some great artists out there that like are newer that I already have that emotional attachment to. Like, Nothing Nowhere is an amazing. It's really just Joe, but like, you know, an amazing group / person. And, you know, he's extremely vulnerable, and I think he's very healthy. Like, he speaks out about things and doesn't present it in a negative way, but a very just honest, real way, and it sounds different. And I love music that isn't the same thing as everything else that you've heard. So those are awesome.
Was the first, it could be like a band, it could be a song, album, genre even. The first thing that you remember hearing as a kid that made you go, like, oh, like this. Like, absolutely this. I think, while you think, I think mine was Green Day. I think mine was Green Day's American Idiot when I was like, I don't know, 8 maybe? But I had an older brother, and so that's how that went. That was what was playing in the car. And I don't know, just the fact that it was a concept album, that it was like basically a little rock opera. I don't know, something about it. And now Green Day stand to this day. So
I love Green Day. It's funny because my older brother was was also that person. Like, I remember going through and, you know, seeing his Nirvana things, and like, it's how I found, like, the first CD I ever owned was Soul Asylum. And just kind of like finding my own musical tastes through his collection, being like, well, I don't know about Meat Puppets, this isn't my vibe. But I don't know what, like, the first like song where I was like, this is like it, like, I want, like, it exemplifies everything. But I remember that Green Day, Good Riddance was the reason I wanted to learn to play guitar.
Mm.
Because I heard that song, which actually was just on my story, me trying to learn it because I was too scared to try and fingerpick and sing before like the past 2 months to try and learn that. But I was like, oh, I love this. Like, I want to be able to play this song. And then I got a part-time job to save up $600 to buy my first guitar, and then I quit immediately afterwards. And it was a long time before I actually got to learn guitar, because a lot of people would say, "Oh no, I'll help you learn some chords," and then they never did. And you know, I was already had piano lessons, and I was already like taking vocal lessons and things like that. So I couldn't ask my parents for another like paid for lesson. But it just like that song made me fall in love with acoustic guitars, and I was like, I want to be able to play that song. And then it just kind of grew from there. So it's funny that Green Day had kind of a big impact on both of us in that way. Hopefully Billy Joe feels good about that.
Billy Joe.
And I got to see them live. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago for the first time, and that was super exciting.
So cool.
Yeah.
I saw them. I think I was in 8th grade, maybe. That was my big like. I don't think I listened to another artist from. I was in an all-girl Green Day cover band for a little bit of middle
That's
school.
amazing.
Literally don't think I listened to any other artist for like a whole year. Just had its foot right on my neck for some reason.
That's so funny. Was that your first like real concert when you were like went to see them, or?
I went to Kelly Clarkson with my mom when I was like.
I guess in my mind, like I was thinking so like without parents.
Oh,
like was that
like
your first?
like based off of like my personal taste.
Yeah.
I think so. That and the Warped Tours. Like I went to Warped Tour a few times, high school.
Yeah, those were amazing. My first like one that had nothing to do with my parents was Fuel and Three Doors Down.
Three Doors Down.
And that was amazing. It was also like an eye opener, like culture shock, because I'm just this like little like teenage like barely teenage like girl, and like there's just all these real tough people. Like I think that person's doing drugs.
Yep.
Which later would be ironic, but yeah. And then since then, I have like a little plaque. It doesn't even have anyone on it because I didn't make it until I was older. But I've probably seen like 500 artists live at this point, and I just think just the feeling of being at like concerts and festivals, like sharing that like love of a band, and just like who cares? Like you're dancing however you want to dance, and like nothing, like you don't worry about like looking stupid or anything like that. And I think when I realized that early in high school, that it was a place where nobody cared, like if you could dance or you know if you knew all the words or anything like that, and everyone was just so like alive and happy. And that energy became very kind of a negative connotation, but very addicting to me. And COVID has been very difficult. I'm very excited to be able to to go and see some live music again.
How did COVID affect your writing process? I'm curious. Like, was it easier to write? Was it harder to write because now you had more time? So it's like, oh, well, I might as well write.
So I went in with this attitude, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have so much time to like write music. That is not how it played out. Because there's still life and like motivation, and there's still Netflix, and there's still social media, and it's really easy to just get sucked into those things. And I'm a person who like I do well with like motivation, like oh okay, I'm gonna be performing, so I need to like work on this, or like I'm gonna be playing with just like friends, like having that structure built in. Like I really thrive on that structure. So eventually I ended up deciding I was going to work on my mechanics, like my craft. And so I got a music mentor who I've been working with. So she's a vocal coach and helps some artists kind of with their image or their branding or like fixing certain things. But she's worked with like punk groups and she's coached people for like The Voice and like things like that. So she's been challenging me to like, one, build confidence, which is a huge thing, and two, just work on my vocal range, my vocal technique, my breath support, and then I've been working on improving my guitar by, you know, learning how to play other people's strumming patterns or finger picking or things like that, faster songs, because I'm always like, I'll just slow it down a little so I don't have to make this chord change so fast. And in turn, what that did is it made me revise some of my songs and go back and just kind of be like, okay, so this is what needs to happen. And the stuff that I'm now writing is very different than the stuff that I had like written, you know, a few years ago. It's less singer-songwriter folk type thing, which is never necessarily the genre I wanted. It's just where I felt like comfortable, I guess, like vocally and timing wise. And so this is making me have to learn to stay in time because I'm going to need other instruments involved, and I have to like look at production, and like I'm like learning how to like evaluate like sounds for like beats and things like that. And so it's really pushed me to grow as an artist. And it felt a little like taking steps backwards at first because I'm like, well, I was supposed to record an album full length at like the end of this year, and now I'm like, but now I'm not ready because like now there's all these other things that I want to do, and it's going to be better, and I'm excited about it. But I had to get past that like thing that's like, well, you know, now it's delayed even more and things like that. And it's just, it was a little bit difficult to wrap my mind around. I still have things to learn to be able to make it sound the way I want. But she's great. And my sound engineer from the studio who I've worked with is always super supportive and will answer all of my questions in terms of like, what am I doing wrong? Why does this sound like this? And that's been really helpful. So I'm super excited. It's been a time of growth as an artist, but not necessarily a time of like content production, I guess, which, you know, I feel like the content will be better now. So it's okay that I'm taking that extra time for that growth.
Yeah. And I feel like that is so applicable to, I think, just the time period as a whole, too. Yeah. Whether it's in terms of like an artist prioritizing growing over output, you know, and not basing their worth as an artist off of what they can actually like produce and package and finish for other people.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing with where the music industry is now, like, because you know, with streaming services and like just like there are artists that just like, and I've read some things where they just say they feel the pressure from the industry, they have to get a single out like every other week or something like that. And while it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, it just doesn't give that time or even that build up. Like I remember waiting years for like a new album by an artist because, you know, they'd tour and then they'd take a year and they'd write, and now it's just like this instant gratification type culture in terms of music for a lot of people. And I don't know that that's a good thing.
Yeah. And that paired with, I think, you know, it's so great that we have all of these means of discovering artists, and we have all these means of finding new music and listening to music. And it means that who becomes popular and who you get to listen to isn't just at the mercy of like a few dudes in a room at a label office, which is great. But the other side of that coin is that I think because there are so many options and there are so many talented people making great music, what people attach themselves to now, even more so than ever, often is like the persona and the personality and feeling like you know them and feeling like they could be your friend or like your significant other, like romanticizing people in a variety of ways. And I think it forces, especially up and coming and especially young artists, to kind of give everything and to always be on and to always feed this base, because giving giving them this is what really keeps them here. Like, they'll come back for the music, but what makes fans is the attachment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was having this conversation, I think, a couple weeks ago, that it's a very double-edged sword. It's great because, like, now, you know, anybody can get their music out there, and you can find all of these people, and it's not this top 40 world anymore. But at the same time, there's so much competing for that, and you really have to be pushing yourself. Like, you know, in one of my recent posts, I like put it up. I'm like, well, I need to post something because otherwise I lose my spot in the algorithm. And and so like I hashtag it algorithm prison because like it feels like you're trapped in this like need to constantly be getting something out there at all times so that people don't either you don't get pushed out of their feed or they don't kind of just move on to something else like that. Like, it's great to have all those options and to, like, be able to really get to know people, like, as artists. But at the same time, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, like, that constant, like, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still here. Especially if you're not, like, releasing something right this second. Like, don't forget about me, like, kind of thing. And I think it takes some just mental checking to remember why you're doing what you're doing, to not get lost in that. Because if you're creating art, honestly, so that you can be like insta famous or whatever, like that's not like go spend your time doing something else. Like I don't know. Like that human connection, that expression, that like making what you want is the important thing. And yeah, it's great to have like fans / followers and things like that, but having people there for the right reasons that are following you and having your life not be so overtaken with trying to stay relevant that you're no longer creating anything because your time is just completely consumed with, you know, going out and getting a picture of you somewhere or whatever it is. I think that's a hard balance to try and maintain in a very like, you know, social media / streaming service industry at this point. So it's very double-edged, but I'm always excited when I find new people. Like I found a few new people on Instagram musician wise in the last couple weeks, and I'm like, and it's great because like you get DMs back and that's fun. It's like, oh my god, I love your music, I just wanted to tell you, and then like they say thank you, where like as like, you know, I can't even imagine that as like a 14-year-old, like I'm gonna send like, you know, whoever a letter and then it gets thrown in a pile, they never saw it, like it's so I don't know, it's a yeah, I think there's a lot of ups and downs, and it's just finding that balance for yourself so that you don't get sucked into the wrong parts of it.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a lot of followers. Like I don't have like 8,000 followers. Or I don't even know what's considered a lot. 25,000 followers. I have no idea. But when I get emails or I get messages from people who are like, I heard this song and I just like wanted to tell you like something, but like that means a lot. Like that's the interaction that's like meaningful, as opposed to like, oh no, my picture only got like 89 likes today instead of, you know, 204 or whatever it is. Because you can get easily sucked into that numbers game, and those numbers don't matter. I had to do a lot of training having an eating disorder about making sure you don't focus on numbers that don't matter. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a very similar premise. Your worth is not established by a number. Any number in the entire world, whether it's followers, likes, your weight, like anything.
Yes, so. I am no stranger to the numbers being what really tips you over the edge for some reason. I think that's more common than I think a lot of people know.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've hung out with me for a very long time, and I appreciate you very much. So I'm going to ask you one more question before I let you go, and we do our little sign off. I'd like to know, like, why are you here? Like, why?
You're on this planet. It's very existential.
Yeah. Like, you know, why did you choose to message us and come on here and share not the most, it is very vulnerable and intimate information that you could choose to keep close to your chest if you wanted to.
I saw the initial post just kind of like reaching out, and I guess one, I looked at your organization before I before I said anything, because I was like, well, let me see who these people are before. I don't want to like associate myself with something I don't believe in. But I think the more people sharing stories and just talking about it, because I think I tell my story in every song that I write. I mean, it may be more cryptic and it may be less biographical in certain cases, but it's out there, and I don't have a problem talking about any of the issues that I've had or am having or will have in the future, because I'm human. Like, this is who I am. And I feel like a lot of people still have that pressure to hide who they are. And I saw your organization. One, it was Connecticut, which is like my home community. And while I think, national organizations are amazing, like, like I've been a big supporter of To Write Love on Her Arms for a long time. In places like that, it's the community-based groups that are going to actually make a difference in a teen's life or a young adult's life or an adult's life, because you're there. Like, you don't seem like just this organization that exists in the nether. You're like real people. Like, I could drive to like see like your address, like, and things like that. And so I really liked what you guys were doing. I liked the idea of giving music to people, and to help prevent, even if it's just one person, from, giving up. And also just kind of, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about a lot of parts of mental health, whether it's just assuming that people are being dramatic, whether it's just assuming that people have something innately wrong with them because they struggle with it, or that asking for help makes you weak, or that maybe you've tried to stop using drugs or tried to stop like hurting yourself, or you've tried to get yourself to go out to these things and you keep failing at it over and over again. That was yesterday. That's today. That doesn't dictate the rest of your life. The only thing that could stop that is if you decide to end your life. Because eventually, so many people do find the right help, the right thing. And it's little steps. It's tiny little steps. It's going an hour. It's going a day. It's picking up the phone. It's sending a text. Like, it's little things. And all of those little tiny victories are not just little tiny victories. Like, that's huge. Like, I had severe phone anxiety before I was on my, like, correct medication. I still have anxiety about it, but I can do it. Like, where I would just let my life fall apart because I wouldn't call the doctor back, or I wouldn't call, the college back, or whatever it was. And I would just be so terrified that I just let my life just fall apart. I'm like, well, and then it would be this self-fulfilling thing because I was too scared to do it. And I felt like, well, it's never going to happen. So the first time I made that phone call, even though I had to like work myself up for days, and it was a stupid phone call. I don't even remember what it was. It was like it was just like the dumbest thing ever that I had to call. And like, doing that was a huge victory for me. And like, a lot of people might be like, it's just a phone call. But don't downplay your victories, because those victories are what build to the next victory. They build to the next victory, that build to a place where you can feel positive a large part of the time. And they'll get the bigger steps done. Because I fail every day at a lot of things. And that's okay, because I'm still here. And I still get up and I still try again, whether it's with music, whether it's like this conversation never would have happened like a year ago. Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine. One, like talking to somebody, two, having it be a video. I would have been like, oh God, what do I look like? Like, what do I wear? What should I, like, oh God, do I look ugly in this? Do I need a filter? I have 2 years of my life with all Snapchat filters on. I don't have a single picture years of my life where I don't have a Snapchat filter on, because I was so insecure about pictures.
That's so real. Yeah.
And now it's just like, I'm sitting here real time with you, and nothing. It's just like, let's have this conversation. And if it helps somebody, great. And if it doesn't help anybody, well, I don't know, I got to meet you and I got to talk to you, so like that was fun, so why not? Like on a more personal note, if you are a girl, especially in this case, and things have not been working and you've been struggling with depression, anxiety, and you've never been checked for ADHD, go look up some stuff about how it manifests in girls, because it's different. It is different than in guys. Just because it's so underdiagnosed, and it can be life-changing if that is your issue. And if you're scared of any kind of medication, regardless what the issue is, not everybody needs medication. But if that is the solution for you, you know, my mom takes a pill for her thyroid every day since she was 19 years old. My dad takes medication every day. I take medications every day. It's just to make you healthy. It's not to change you as a person. And anybody who says anything different, they're just ignorant. I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean they're actually ignorant on the topic. And just kind of swat the flies away. Not worth it. It's not worth the energy. So I guess that's why I came on here. I don't even know if that made sense. See, my medication is working out. For the day, you can see my ADHD coming through a little more. But I'm like, I don't know if that sentence made sense, but that's okay.
No, that was a lot. Literally, as you're finishing right now, I was just thinking, what a, like, insightfully dense, like, little soliloquy that was. Like, that was so many good points that touched on stuff that is so important in different ways, that you managed to just, like, wrap up together there in a way that I'm very impressed by.
And if you're a person who literally feels like they have no one, my account name is probably somewhere on here. You can DM me, I'll answer. Like if you just want to say hi, if you literally just need to like hear from somebody, like I'm worth responding to. I mean, I can't necessarily promise I'll be your best friend. I have trouble maintaining my life as it is. But I can also, you know, if you are struggling with these and you just need a resource, I have a whole computer and binders full of Medicaid taking doctors, Husky taking doctors, if you're a Connecticutite, like
nice.
People who specialize in eating disorders and things like that. So if I can help in any way beyond my music, I'll be happy to point you in the right direction, or just tell you that you're worth it, just because you exist, just because you are worth it. So. Yeah. You take nothing else away. That is the hope.
And if someone wanted to play your music,
it's everywhere. I mean, like I said, the direction I'm going is going to be quite different going forward. But I am on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music. Do people use Google Music? I don't know. I think I'm on there though through the distribution company. It's also, I think things are on my website. If you don't use a streaming service or want to buy it or anything like that. And if you really actually like it, you're like, I would love to own a medium that nobody uses anymore and want a CD. I have those, and I would be happy to give it to anybody for free who references the AJJ Foundation in their message to me. I would send it to you for free.
Yeah, well, you will be receiving some more streams from our end very soon. We're working on getting a foundation Spotify account. Yeah, so you're gonna get some notifications that you've been added to some playlists hopefully soon.
Yeah, no, and anything you guys if you have events or anything that I can do to support, whether it's you want local artists to come tell their story, to play music, to literally just be there to talk to people who are struggling, let me know, and if I can be there, be happy to help you guys. I don't have any extra instruments. I saw that you guys were looking for extra donations and things. If I come across any, I will be sure to keep you guys in mind. But
yeah, well, if I'm speaking for the board here, so just me, but I would love to have you at anything we have. We have some events coming up this summer. We will definitely be in touch. Right. I will keep you posted.
Great, that sounds good.
Gosh, thank you so much again for hanging out. This has been
this has been super fun.
great.
We'll keep in touch with each other, and I don't know, wish you guys all the best luck of whatever you're planning right now.
You too, man.
I don't know how to end conversations, so I'm just like awkwardly like.
Here, I got it. I'm gonna click out. It was very nice to meet you.
Me too. Thank you for having me.